The air crackled with tension, a silent storm brewing in the opulent lakeside mansion. My sister's wedding was just hours away, but the only thing on my mind was the looming presence of my ex, lurking somewhere within the sprawling venue. He was a ghost from a past I desperately tried to bury, a shadow that refused to fade. My sister, bless her misguided heart, had orchestrated this reunion, convinced that we were meant to be and that our fractured love story could somehow be salvaged. But she didn't know the depths of my resentment, the bitter taste of betrayal that lingered on my tongue. I was trapped, a reluctant guest at my emotional execution, and I knew I had to escape before the night spiraled into a catastrophic meltdown. The Opie sister must have attended the school of sibling sabotage with flying colors. If only her dedication to family events matched her enthusiasm for cyber espionage, maybe they could have avoided this whole mess. My sister wanted me to patch things up with my ex and tried to sabotage my relationship. I reported her for cybercrime. I'm 21, female, and used to date my ex, a 30-year-old male, in school. He was my brother's best friend, also 30. We dated for over 3 years. On my graduation day from high school, he proposed to me. I wasn't ready to get married, so I rejected his proposal. He was heartbroken. I'm not belittling his feelings, but the thing is, I had told him about my dreams of pursuing a career before getting married. Even after knowing my goals in life, if he proposed to me, I could do nothing except turn it down. Instead of understanding me, he gaslighted the situation and said I was a fool for exploiting his feelings for 3 years, and then rejecting his proposal. I loved him. I wasn't playing with his feelings, but I had my plans in life. I was barely 18 then. I don't know how he expected me to drop my career and settle down with him. I tried to reason out my concerns, but eventually I realized it was better to move on from him, so I broke up with him. He went around and told my family about it. My brother asked me the reason, and I told him it was my career. He understood my point and told my ex to be supportive of me if he wanted me in his life. My sister, 26, was upset with me. She was dating my ex's brother, and they were planning their wedding in a year or 2. She wanted me to continue with my ex and eventually marry him so that we could be connected as one happy family. That idea used to excite me earlier, but seeing the true colors of my ex after the breakup, I was out of that plan. It wasn't an easy decision for me, knowing that I would bump into him more often than not. My ex has always been close to my family since he was my brother's best friend. My ex's brother also had feelings for my sister, so the 3 boys, my brother, my ex, and his brother, would always hang out at our place. My sister and I used to tag along with them. My parents liked them. We had vacations together. You see how complex the situation is. I understand it was difficult for him too because he might not be able to hang out at our house anymore. But that jerk was a leech. After a month of going around bad-mouthing me in front of my siblings, he returned and suggested we continue dating and push the marriage to the back seat. I said I didn't want to be with him and we should part ways. He told everyone that I was a witch who played with his feelings. I mean, yes, while turning down his marriage proposal. I told him that I loved him and we could continue to date. And when I was settled in my career, we could visit the idea of marriage. But this was before he went around complaining about me. But after seeing the man-child in him, I was done with him. His emotions of feeling betrayed were still unbelievable. Heartbreak could be tricky. The way my sister was behaving was kind of weird. She was mad at me for breaking up with my ex. She said, "How could you ruin our perfect plan of being together as a happy family? We both would marry in the same family and be the godmother of each other's children. We could go on family vacations. Do you imagine the fun it would be? The family dinners and Christmas would be so much fun." I said, we could still do all of these without my ex. No matter how I tried to reason with her, she would never understand. Every other day, she would come around nagging with another good reason to take my ex back. Living in the same house, it was difficult to ignore her. When she couldn't convince me alone, she brought her mom into her team. I tell you, no one could nag you more than your mom. They tried all means to convince me, from listing down his good qualities to alluring me with his dad's wealth. I still said nope. When they couldn't move me through their manipulations, they started making plans that would force me to see my ex. My sister planned dinners and outings that would be a nightmare for me. My ex started acting creepy, and surprisingly, it was just me who thought this. The rest of everyone thought he was madly in love with me and cute for making moves at me. Once they planned a vacation, I wanted to skip it, but my siblings assured me that they would make it comfortable for me. However, on reaching there, I found that they had booked only 3 rooms. My sister and her boyfriend took one, my brother and his girlfriend got another, and I was left to share a room with my ex. I couldn't believe they would go so far as to make me share a room with him. That was it. I stormed out of the hotel and came back home. Since then, I never went on any vacations or dinners with them. I laid out a clear choice in front of my siblings. It's either him or me. My brother backed off after that, but my sister threw tantrums at me and called me rude and egotistic. My ex continued to hang out with my siblings. Such a loser. They often went outside, but no one asked me to be a part of their plan. It was such a relief to be able to get my ex off my back. I stopped going out with them. Initially, I used to be bored and felt alone because I had no close friends to hang out with. I had been hanging out with them for the last many years, so I decided to move to a different city. I applied for an undergrad program and moved out. It was a tough decision, but I was determined to cut off my ex from my life. I wasn't this bitter about my ex during the breakup. It was the aftermath that made me resentful of him. Finally, I was able to cut the crap out of my life. It's been 2 years since then and I haven't gone home. It's fun here. I met a guy last year. He was in his senior year and now he's working at a private bank. He's from a different university. We met at a college festival and since then we couldn't stop seeing each other. We have a lot in common. A few months back, I moved in with him and posted a picture with him on my Instagram. My sister asked me who he was. I said, "My boyfriend and I have been living together." She didn't say anything after that. I told my boyfriend about my ex. He was stunned to know how my sister tried relentlessly to try to hook me up with my ex despite my refusal. Last week, my sister called me and said she was getting married and she wanted me to be her maid of honor. Not only that, she wanted me to help her with the wedding preparations. I was excited, except for that brief period of bitterness due to my ex. My sister and I shared a good bond. We have so many happy memories with each other. We had made so many plans for each other's weddings. You know how sisters are. Perhaps my concern might be evident now. My sister is getting married to my ex's brother, so the presence of my ex is imminent at the wedding, unless there has been a fallout between the brothers. I don't want to bump into my loser ex again, and neither do I want to miss my sister's wedding. Oh, Opie, you dodged a bullet there. Imagine being married to someone who doesn't understand that I want a career means I want a career, not please derail my life plans with a ring I didn't ask for. It's almost impressive how he turned your whole family into his fan club. If only manipulation was an Olympic sport, he'd have a gold medal. As for your sister, she seems to be living in a Hallmark movie where everyone ends up marrying their high school sweetheart siblings. It's sweet in theory, but in practice, it's a logistical nightmare. Rooming you with your ex on a vacation, that's not just a boundary issue. It's a whole wall demolition. You handled it like a pro, though, moving to a different city, building a new life, and finding a boyfriend who doesn't come with a built-in family drama package. Solid moves. And now the wedding, yes, the potential minefield of running into your ex who never grew up. If you do decide to attend, think of it as a chance to showcase your fabulous new life, complete with a successful career and a boyfriend who's not a walking red flag. Your sister might want you to help with her wedding, but maybe consider negotiating some ex-free zones, like the entire venue. Either way, remember you've already navigated through the worst of it. The wedding is just the grand finale where you get to show everyone how little their drama affects you now. Hey, pause for a moment. Would you care to support us? Like this video and subscribe for more. Now let's dive back into the story. Update 1. Hello all. Thanks for all the advice. As suggested by you guys, I made it clear to my sister that she should not try to patch me up with my ex anymore. And if I get the slightest hint about it, I'm going to storm out from the wedding. She assured me that nothing of that sort would happen because my ex was also dating someone, and they were pretty serious about it. It was such a relief. Almost 10 days before the wedding, I'm headed home to spend time with my family. My sister is also home during that period. It was fun catching up with them after 2 years. My brother was missing from the picture because he had moved to Canada. He arrived on the wedding day. I was happy to see they had moved on from obsessing about my ex. However, that was short-lived. They had different plans for setting me up with my ex. Coming to that eventually, it was also much fun helping my family with the wedding preparation until the day before the wedding. so they had booked a lakeside mansion sort of thing for the wedding. It was like 100 miles away from our place. The night before the wedding, there was the bachelorette party at the mansion. Me and my sister and a few of her friends headed to the venue a day before the wedding. I reluctantly asked her who all were coming from her fiancé's side. She said his a bunch of friends from high school. I had this eerie feeling of my ex showing up and making it uncomfortable for me, but my sister assured me that he had moved on. I thought, and even she said that the bachelor and bachelorette party would be separate. But after reaching there, she just said, "Oh, the event manager clubbed it both." I was stupid to think that she hid this because my mom would be mad at her for meeting her husband a day before the wedding. We have a custom sort of to not meet the groom or bride at least a week before the wedding. I asked her if Mom knew about the joint party. She said, "No, don't tell her. She would get mad at me." We got all dressed up and reached the spot. It was a pool party at the rooftop. My sister's fiancé arrived with his friends. The party started and we were all enjoying it until I saw my ex creepily staring at me from a distance. I rushed and pulled my sister by her arm. I asked her what my ex was doing there. She said, "Well, he's my fiancé's brother. It should be a surprise if he wasn't here." I was surprised at her changing colors. Had I known he would be here, I would have skipped this party. She winked at me and said, "You're still obsessed with him, aren't you?" I said, "I'm not, but looks like you guys are still hooked up with the idea of patching me up with him." She grinned and asked me to take it lightly. She was like, "You both are dating different people in life, so what's the big deal in spending one evening together? You don't need to talk to him. Ignore him as if he doesn't exist, or you might just call it a cheat day." I rolled my eyes and went away. It was more like a pool party, not a bachelorette party. My sister was glued to her fiancé, and most of her friends were hitting on the groom's friends. My ex was also flirting with one of my sister's friends. It was getting boring for me. I was killing my time chatting with my boyfriend and updating him about what was happening there. He was invited to the wedding, which was on the next day. Had I known it was a combined party and I would be left on my own, I would have called my boyfriend. It was still 10 when I called it a day, grabbed one of the rooms of the mansion, and snoozed. Around 11:30, my sister knocked, asking me to give her the room because the rest of the 5 rooms were occupied by their friends and groomsmen. I told her to sleep with me and that her fiancé could adjust with any of the groomsmen. She insisted that they wanted to spend the night together, so I should adjust with any of her friends. They were drunk and started making out in front of me, so I grabbed my stuff and moved out. I knocked in a couple of rooms, but it looked like they all had company. I came back to my room and asked my sister to finish her business faster and let her fiancé go and sleep in another room. Her fiancé told me there's a small studio room upstairs that I can grab. I went there and found it was occupied by my ex. He was alone. He was saying something, but I stormed back to my room and yelled at my sister. At this point, I doubted if she was drunk or if she was pretending to pull out her plan. She said, "It's just a matter of one night. You can adjust with him." I was dumbfounded at her suggestion, and she slammed the door in my face. I wanted to storm off the venue and drive back, but it was too late in the night to drive off from such a remote location. After my failed search for a vacant room, I dozed off on the couch near the entrance. I was shivering with cold when one of the housekeeping women offered me a blanket. I was so pissed off at my sister that I wanted to walk out of her wedding the next day. In the early morning, my sister woke me up and said, "What are you doing here in the cold? Why didn't you sleep in the room upstairs?" I wanted to strangle her to death. I gave her a cold look. She said, "I didn't ask you to have sex with him. People can sleep in the same bed without having sex." I got so mad at this and I yelled, "Probably you should try this with your husband after your divorce and then let me know how it feels." She got offended that I was wishing for her a divorce on her wedding day. She tried to gaslight the situation, saying it was my fault that I was overreacting to my ex's presence at the party. I didn't give in to her pressure and pushed her to the corner until she confessed about deliberately putting me in a spot where I would be forced to share a room with my ex. She yelled, "Yes, I did that, and it was for your good. He still loves you despite all your narcissism. You won't get a better man than him. No one can keep you happy more than him. See, he is still ready to accept you after everything you did to him." To my surprise, I saw him standing at the corner of the hallway and sobbing. What a pathetic loser he is. She was saying something about my boyfriend. I didn't hear it. I was grabbing my stuff to storm off the venue. I said I'd not attend her wedding, and she said, "Fine by me. You anyways find solace and outsiders." She didn't even try to stop me. I drove off from the place. My parents called me asking what happened between you two that your sister is asking us not to let you attend her wedding. I said great if she said so because I'm not keen on attending it either. They tried to probe me further, but I hung up the call, saying they should ask her about it. My brother also called me after reaching the venue. He said he was looking forward to catching up with me. I narrated to him the entire incident. He said it was my decision and he respected it. Probably my brother told my parents about the incident. They called me again and said they were sorry for what happened the other night, but they still wanted me to attend my sister's wedding. They said they didn't want people to gossip and question my absence at the wedding. They laid out a choice that I would attend the wedding only if they asked that jerk to leave. They said they couldn't do that because he was the groom's brother. My anger had overshadowed my brain. I didn't know if that was good or bad, but I remained stuck to the point that I wouldn't attend until he left. No one could ask him, but my sister called me and apologized for her behavior. My parents made her do so. By then, my fiancé had also reached the venue. I had forgotten to inform him that I had stormed out, so I made a U-turn and went back. When I reached there, my ex was standing at the entrance. He was trying to say something, but I yelled at him, "Stay away from me," and went inside. My sister hugged me and said sorry, but I was still angry at her. I told her, "If you try any further tricks, I'm going to cut you off for my life." She promised she wouldn't. The rest of the day was fun. My ex got badly smashed after seeing me with my boyfriend. I was deliberately acting touchy when cozy with my boyfriend, which made his blood boil. As for my sister's narration, he crashed into one of the rooms and didn't even attend the wedding dinner. Good for him. My parents and my brother were happy to meet my boyfriend, and so was he. I feel sorry for the woman my ex is dating, if at all he is. A joint bachelorette party is like mixing oil with water, or in this case, mixing exes with future spouses. Your sister's got some serious talent for creating chaos, and then the passive-aggressive resistance. The forced rooming with your ex, if that's not a recipe for disaster, I don't know what it is. I mean, who needs sleep anyway, right? Your sister's excuse, "Oh, just one night, no big deal." Sure, because sharing a bed with your ex is as casual as sharing a pizza. Update 2. Hello all. Some people don't understand boundaries, and my sister is one of them. Despite telling her so many times not to intervene in my life, she again pulls another trick to have my ex back in my life, and this time I have cut her off once and for all. The most disgusting part is that even after so many insults and outbursts, my ex still joins hands with my sister in her tricks. 2 months back, my boyfriend proposed, and I said yes. I posted my picture with the ring on my Instagram. My sister asked about it, and I told her we were planning a wedding this year. She asked me for the details, saying she needed to prepare her speech and her dress, etc. I said, "We're not doing a fancy wedding, just a simple one at the city hall." She was not happy with a small wedding, but that's a separate, non-related discussion. I told my parents about the plan, and they were happy and supportive about it. 1 week later, my fiancé got a text from an unknown account telling him that I had been cheating on him. He didn't run to inform me. He got alerted. He asked the person about the details. Quite naturally, the unknown person identified himself to be his well-wisher and shared pictures of me with my ex, which were morphed because I never cheated on my fiancé. The person told him that my fiancé was my rebound, that I didn't love him, and I traveled frequently to my hometown to meet my ex. My fiancé got suspicious because the person told him I was sleeping with my ex. My fiancé knew very well that I could never do that. He said he might have bought it if the person said any other name. He knew I was so resentful of my ex that I could never go back to him. My fiancé showed me the chats, and I was raging with anger. I gave him my phone at that very moment to check. He didn't check it, saying he trusted me. I told him I was going to report this person. I drove him to the station and registered a case against an unknown person under cybercrime for morphing my pictures and sharing them online. My husband asked me if I was sure to report this because the person might very well turn out to be my sister. I said, I didn't mind seeing her behind the bars. 10 days later, I got a call from the cops asking me to visit the station. I went there to find that the investigation was over, and the IP address used to morph and send those pictures was of my sister's. I went full nuclear on her. The cops informed her about the case registered in her name and asked her to appear before the cops before they hunted her down. She called me on my fiancé, but we didn't respond. My parents also called us, but we declined their calls too. Finally, she arrived with her husband and started sobbing upon seeing me. She immediately confessed that she had done everything to secure my future. I said, "Explain to the cops how morphing my explicit pictures is going to secure my future?" I lashed out at her. My parents arrived by then and tried to mediate. I said I was done with her, and now she has to face the consequences of her actions. She was fined with a hefty amount and a stern warning to stay away from me. After coming out of the station, her husband tries to mess up with my fiancé. I told him to better watch his words and to look out for his brother's behavior if they don't want him to be reported as a molester. I was on fire that night. I had tolerated her BS enough, and that was it. The good news is we got married last weekend. It was a small wedding with just our parents. My brother could not make it because it was short notice. It has been peaceful since my last outburst. I'm going to remain firm in my decision to cut off my sister for my life because she was more harm than good. I treasure my relationship with my husband and cannot let anyone sabotage it. Your sister must have taken sibling rivalry to a whole new level. Most sisters just borrow clothes without asking, but yours, oh no, she goes straight for cyber warfare. Morphing explicit pictures is just not crossing boundaries. That's pole vaulting over them with a jetpack, and all in the name of securing your future. Well, I hope she had a backup plan because this one didn't pan out. But let's give credit where credit is due. Your sister's dedication to her craft is unmatched. I mean, most people would draw the line at fabricating evidence, but not her. She has full CSI cyber on you. But hey, congratulations on your wedding. Here's to a lifetime of marital bliss free from meddling siblings and their Photoshop shenanigans. As they say, till death do us part. Or until your sister learns her lesson, whichever comes first. What would you have done? Let's conclude the story shortly. The wedding was a success. My ex didn't show up, and my sister, despite her earlier antics, seemed to have learned her lesson. She apologized again, but this time it felt genuine. Maybe she finally understood that her meddling was hurting our relationship. My husband and I are happy. We're building a life together, free from the drama of my family. I still haven't gone back home, but I'm in contact with my brother. He's happy for me, and I'm glad he's on my side. As for my sister, I've decided to forgive her, but I'm not forgetting what she did. I'm keeping my distance, but I'm open to a future where we can have a healthy, respectful relationship. It's going to take time, but I'm hopeful. Life is good. I'm finally free to focus on my career and my relationship. I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned, and I'm excited about what the future holds. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.